The US and Venezuela held a meeting in Caracas where the possibility of lifting sanctions on Venezuelan oil was discussed. CGTN's Stephen Gibbs is in Caracas with more.
Well, we have very few concrete details about this meeting, which neither the US government or the Venezuelan government has commented directly upon. But what we do know is that a US delegation, including a senior White House official, did come to Caracas on Saturday, and talks were held with the Maduro government in the presidential palace here. Now, that in itself is significant, given that the US government does not officially recognize President Maduro as the leader of Venezuela. But the times are changing and bigger issues are at stake. One key one, which we understand was in fact the main focus of the discussions, is oil. Now, if the US stops buying Russian oil, Venezuela may be able to make up some of the shortfall. But the US currently sanctions Venezuelan oil, so the deal and what these talks were focusing on, we understand, is how those sanctions could be lifted either temporarily or permanently. Now, the US would expect something in return for the lifting of sanctions. That could be the release of US citizens, which Washington says are currently held without justification here, or even a commitment from the Venezuelan government perhaps on holding free and fair presidential elections in the future. Venezuela, for its part, has various incentives. There are reports that quite a lot of the government's money is currently stuck in Russian banks, and it needs Russia's assistance to release those funds. Now, by talking to the United States, that may be a way of putting a little bit of pressure on Russia. There are big geopolitical issues at stake here. You've got to remember the Maduro government is pretty close to Russia, and a shift towards the US would be a major change. So the consensus really amongst analysts is that any deal is quite a long shot, a bit improbable, but not totally out of the question. Stephen Gibbs, CGTN, Caracas.